Okay, so good day, everyone. It's good to see you all joining us for the second day, the day 2 of the 2025 edition of the Dogalov's Human-Animal Interactions Conference in Africa. I am your host for the event, and I am equally the founder of Dogalov Human Support Initiative. I am Dr. Sunday Agbonika, and it's my honor to have you join us. This indeed, like we said yesterday, is a monumental thing for us, like being here for the 5th time running. And we have, between yesterday and today, people still signing up in the numbers. At the last check, we already had 690 people signed up for the conference from 57 countries. So it's really great to have you all join us in this journey. I will be moving straight into the event for today by bringing up or inviting the person who would lead us through the conference for today. But then before I do that, once again, to just mention that we would, if your name on the call right now is not what we have in the background, like we had earlier, we had someone with the name HP, we had someone as well with iPhone. So if your name is such on the call, please be advised that you get to rename so that we can match the records that we have here with what we have on our sign-up sheet, so we're able to issue a certificate. But then beyond that, let me go ahead to welcome the person who will be moderating the event for today. And our moderator for today is someone who recently graduated from Redeemers University. She read psychology, and she has a passion for mental health and human-animal interactions. She has interned in both a clinical and a veterinary setting, and she's keen on exploring the therapeutic bond between humans and animals. Outside academics, she has served as a departmental public relations officer, and she intends to pursue a postgraduate degree in clinical psychology with a focus on human-animal interactions. Please make welcome the moderator for the event today, Praise Ibukunoluwa Ogundipe.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very warm welcome. Can we hear me?
Yes, perfectly well.
Okay. I think I'm hearing some background noise.
I'm trying to check who that is. But just go ahead. I would.
Okay. So kicking off very strongly today, I'll be reading the bio of our keynote speaker. She's a veterinarian and animal. Excuse me. She's a veterinarian and animal welfare expert at the African Union Inter-African Bureau She's a veterinarian and animal welfare expert at the African Union and Inter-Africa Bureau for Animal Resources, where she supports the implementation of continental strategies and frameworks to advance animal welfare, particularly within the context of sustainable development and livestock transformation. Our background in health management and advocacy and animal rescue continues to inform our commitment to the welfare of working animals. She is passionate about amplifying the role of animal welfare in sustainable livelihoods. She contributes to the conversations on animal sentience, animal welfare policy, and the nexus between welfare, environmental protection, and public health. Please join me to welcome Dr. Elynn Njeri.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Praise. I hope you can all see and hear me.
Yes, perfectly well.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you so much for that introduction. So as I begin, maybe let me just share my screen so that we can all follow along together. And let me just make sure it's in full mode. Great, fantastic. So as I begin, I think first of all, it's a really great pleasure to be here, because I feel like part of the conversation about animal welfare needs to recognize the heart of where we have human-animal interactions. And I think if we also look at our One Health framework, one of the core aspects or joining points is the meeting point, the interaction between the three different angles. And human-animal interactions are a very important conversation in different angles of animal welfare. And animal welfare is significant for various reasons. And I could start with the importance of taking care of animals because we benefit from them. However, I think at the beginning of understanding why we require animal welfare, I think we also do recognize an ethical responsibility towards our need and why it is our honors to take care of animals. And we have seen that quite a lot, even in our indigenous practices and on indigenous interactions, and even on a one-to-one level of seeing how animal owners interact with their animals. You can tell that there's aspects of care, aspects of genuine interest on how best can I take care of my animal. Yes, this animal is a production animal. It benefits me in one way or another, but I do not want to see it in pain, or I do not want to see it suffer. So we can see that being shown by animal owners throughout the interactions. And I think that is one thing that is important to recognize, and also will be important for us to be able to further amplify the importance of animal welfare. And I just highlighted key aspects of why we need animal welfare. And we do agree that, especially when we look at, now that this fifth edition also is shedding some light on farm animals, that we recognize that we are depending on these animals to enhance food security, to provide some economic sustenance from the people that are owning these animals and selling these animals or using these animals for trade. So it is important for us to also appreciate how best then can we support these people along each of the value chains, along each of those different hinges where animal welfare matters. Because I feel like animal welfare is prevalent in, if we look at farm animals, along the value chain, not just from productivity, but once that animal leaves that farm, it is also important for us to consider how best is that animal being transported? How long is it going for? And do we have requirements that support or guide us on how we can be able to ensure that this animal leaves point A to B, arrives at the market point? What do we need to do to enhance checkups for health, ensure that animals that are unwell are we have early detection, we have areas for isolation, we have areas that we make sure that not only are we supporting the animals that we have, making sure that we prevent them from disease, stress, but we're also preventing the spread of diseases. And we also enhancing our capacity to manage, control, because those are also important aspects. Biosecurity as well is an important aspect. So for us, on a continental scale, I think it is important for us to strengthen and to also give and support countries to have guidelines that are harmonized, because we do have continental standards. WOA has a couple of standards that guide different forms of even transportation, different forms of care. There's a whole section on animal welfare and how animal welfare looks like in these different angles. How does animal welfare look like in companion animals may be different to maybe what animal welfare looks like, but the core, the domains and the needs and requirements are pretty much the same. And this also enhances and helps us to improve our public health needs. It also helps us in protecting our biodiversity, which I think as Africans, we do have quite unique biodiversity, and not just looking at our domestic animals, but also looking at our wild animals. Different parts of Africa have different ecosystems that support animals that can survive in arid areas, desert areas, ecosystems that support animals that live in forests, ecosystems for wetlands, ecosystems that support aquatic life. And even throughout these different ecosystems, we are seeing different interfaces. For example, what does the human-wildlife interface look like? How is it important for us to acknowledge the differences in these interfaces, and how can we be able to use that knowledge that we have and also enhance and incorporate knowledge of the people and communities that have been living there to improve coexistence? Because I think at the heart of sustainability, which I think is a word that comes up a lot when we're looking at how to be able to better utilize not just our animals, but our planet, our environment, we need to use it sustainably. But what does sustainability look like on a day-to-day basis? So looking at our continental strategy, this is really just a guideline, like I mentioned, and I would like to just have a conversation about it, not for it to just look like this is a continental document, but how we can be able to interact with it from the different angles and areas that we're working with, because I feel like the document really seeks to encompass not just areas of policy or areas of legislation. It also seeks to look at areas of education and awareness, advocacy, research. How can we be able to coordinate the activities that we're doing to have bigger impact? Because at the end of the day, we are seeking to improve animal welfare. We're seeking to have greater impact in different regions. So how can we be able to collaborate on similar initiatives? How can we be able to learn from different regions that have been applying different things? How can we be able to have opportunities like this that can be used as information exchange areas to see what other people are doing and how we can best improve our practices? How can we be able to support research institutions? How can we be able to incorporate animal welfare in education? And education starts from various ages. We've seen how important it is to start education on animal welfare and the importance of animal sentience young. We've seen interacting with children supports their growth and supports them to understand these aspects. But education cuts across. Education even happens and is necessary for veterinary professionals. That is why we have continuous professional development. And these are also opportunities for us to be able to see, as practitioners, how are we implementing? Because I feel like at some point we split and separate and see animal health and animal welfare as two different concepts. But really, animal health is animal welfare and animal welfare is animal health. These are components of each other. You cannot achieve animal health without achieving animal welfare and understanding the needs and the requirements of that animal. Therefore, if we cannot attain that, we then cannot achieve an ideal level of public health where we can prevent our zoonosis, or we can be able to monitor these different occurrences, because with increased human-animal interactions, then we do expect increased incidences of zoonosis. So how can we be able to have interactions that are safer, healthier? We do recognize that 70% of emerging diseases are from animal source origin. So what does that tell us about the need and the importance for us to focus on this need? And the strategy really just envisions a continent where animals are being treated as sentient beings. And the continent leads in the implementation of good animal welfare standards and practices, and also seeks to transform the animal resource sector. And this we hope to do through the adoption of good animal welfare practices. And how we are trying to do that is through 3 key strategic objectives, like I had mentioned. And one of the key objectives is attaining behavior change. And behavior change is attained through implementing education programs on proper animal welfare, proper animal care. And if we look at a transactional image of this, we're looking at how can behavior change happen, not just at farmer level, but all the way across. So while we are trying to also develop and support policies, which strategic objective 3 seeks to do, we also need to reach the animal owners, the people that are directly interacting with these animals, the veterinarians, the paraprofessionals that the communities are depending on. How can we be able to make them understand? How can we be able to make people along the livestock value chain understand the importance of animal welfare? Because if they don't understand, then it is not, if you don't know something, then you don't see the importance in anything. When we look at strengthening action, which is our second strategic objective, it looks at improving technologies that could be able to enhance animal health and animal welfare, having digital solutions. How can we improve our monitoring? How do we be able to assess? How are we monitoring our animal welfare activities? How are we taking note of the initiatives that are happening? Because I feel like if we are unable to have a harmonized way or a systematic way of looking at how we can be able to track and monitor how we're implementing animal welfare practices, then it also puts us in a situation where we are not able to track and see the improvements, see the gaps, and see the probable opportunities of what we need to do. And number 3 now looks at mainstreaming animal welfare in policies. And this looks like supporting countries to implement national animal welfare strategies, seeing how we can be able to support animal welfare to be integrated in national development policies, livestock policies, and also seeing how we can harmonize regional standards. Harmonizations, especially in regions, has also been important, not just to have like a coordinated form of response, and also it's very synergistic in the sense that in sometimes different regions you'll have different priorities. So countries within similar regions may experience certain similar challenges, and this will be able to make solving some of these issues a bit easier. It could also help to improve cross-border movement of animals and improve cross-border trade as well. And one of the initiatives that we have seen help that is the initiatives of developing standard methods and procedures. And this was developed in IGAD for the Horn of Africa countries. And we saw that these standard methods and procedures, I think they were for 11 diseases and also quarantine procedures. And these were guidelines to help these countries know how to have us. How do we identify this disease? What is the standard way of testing for this disease? How can we be able to, have a coordinated and harmonized procedure? That way we have similar results and results that can be easily harmonized, noted. And right now we are seeking to also expand that in different regions, but that's just an example of how important looking at harmonization is, and ensuring that we don't have scattered initiatives. I think it is important for us to note the initiatives. Collaboration, I think, is one of the key aspects that we have been able to see, and partnerships are very important in strengthening some of these initiatives. And previously, when we took a stock-taking assessment to look at some of the challenges that the continent or the various countries in the continent had in implementing animal welfare, we could see some of the key challenges were things like governance challenges, financial constraints. There's limited political commitment for investment or financial investment in improving and incorporating animal welfare. Things like capacity gaps, fragmented donor funding, because I know a lot of initiatives do support on donor support, and sometimes without aspects of sustainability for this project to continue by itself, then limited and anything happening to the funding will affect the initiatives. And through the stock-taking exercise, we could see that there were differences in implementation across the various regions of Africa. So while we can see that South Africa and East Africa had improved progress in terms of implementing and incorporating animal welfare, there were still some gaps in West and Central Africa. Not to mean that there are no initiatives, it just means that it shows us that the speeds of the different regions vary. That's one, meaning also their priorities vary. And this is important for us to note so that we can be able, we can be able to deal with things using that approach, because we cannot say the entire continent is having a blanket problem and we can offer a blanket solution for it. I think some of these issues need to be catered to on a need basis, an experience basis. What are the challenges happening in West and Central Africa that are not happening probably in East and South Africa, and how can we be able to modify some of these frameworks to fit and work and support these regions? And also, just because East and South Africa have progress does not mean there's no need to still support and enhance initiatives across these regions. And some of the key recommendations was looking at enhanced funding to support animal welfare implementation across the regions, mainstreaming the continental strategy into national development frameworks, and also supporting regions to harmonize that in their regions, and updating results to develop targeted strategies for lagging regions, like I mentioned. And capacity building is another thing that comes very key. It's something that comes very repeated, and the need for us to include education, awareness, have a way of having communications about animal welfare issues, and highlighting great initiatives happening to support. And just giving a few examples of some of the collaborations that we have had. Oh, sorry. Yes.
I would like to ask if you'll be ending soon, because
Yes.
already it
Don't
is the
worry
time
about
for
that.
the
Very, very well.
All
I'm
right.
actually at the end. So I was just highlighting some of the collaborations and the importance of collaborations, and some of the key collaborations that we've had is with WOA, especially in training animal welfare focal points, and looking at training on not just in Anglophone and Francophone countries. I think just to end, I think one of the key areas for us to look at collaborating is in capacity building, strengthening the veterinary services to be able to enhance animal health and welfare, improving the sustainability, and trying to integrate animal welfare into broader policies, and also engage local communities, NGOs, and most especially the private sector in animal welfare and our species conservation efforts, because I think it is a collective effort and a need for us to support this. So with that being said, I would like to thank you very much, and back to you, Praise. Thank you.
Chris, are you there? Okay, so maybe Praise may be having an issue with her internet.
Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr.
Okay.
Elynn, for that amazing presentation. Okay. All right. So we'll be moving very quickly because of our time to the next speaker, who will be taking us on the wonderful journey with the topic. Okay, so let me quickly read the bio of our speaker. She is a biologist and a psychologist, and is currently a professor in the Department of Fundamental Sciences in the Faculty of Animal Sciences and Biotechnologies at the University of Agricultural Sciences and Veterinary Medicine Oh, I don't think I can pronounce it. Clunapoka. She is the coordinator of the Human Animal Interactions Research Lab. She is also the academic coordinator of the recently founded master's degree program in Romania. Her professional and research interests include humane education, interdisciplinary curricular development, applied values of human-animal interactions, evolutionary psychology, and the multidimensional study of community-oriented volunteering. Please join me to welcome Professor Alina Rusu.
Thank you, Thank you very much for the introduction. That saved me a bit of time because I wanted to ponder.
Dr. Rusu, I think you are muted. We can't hear you.
We can hear.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I could hear praise, and also I can hear Sunday. So I hope everything is okay. Can you see my screen, isn't it? If you can confirm, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I want to congratulate first the previous speakers and the speaker today, all the work that they are doing. And actually, I will be able to move a bit faster through my slides, although I prepared some of them and you carefully the slides and the content, I mean, and I will share it with you with pleasure. So today we will be talking about concepts and benefits of the inclusion of farm animals in animal-assisted services. And I will just shortly, one second, yes, shortly say that I'm coming from Romania and Transylvania, which is very known in all kind of, from historical and cultural perspectives. And I consider myself an interdisciplinary ethologist. And I am very honored to be today together with so many colleagues and the known faces, but also future collaborators or people that are working in the field of veterinary medicine, because we are fully aware that we cannot do ethology, I mean the scientific study of animal behavior, without a close collaboration with people from the field of veterinary medicine. And congratulations to all of you for your dedication and motivation to be in this field. And I'm currently coordinating quite recent, now it's entering the 5th year of existence, a master's degree program, ethology and human-animal interaction, and also a research lab that it's at the very beginning of its existence. But this master's program combines a psychological view on human-animal interactions and anthropology, with also aspects of animal husbandry, veterinary medicine, biology, and many other sciences. So it's a very interdisciplinary one. And I am also representing here not only my university, but also the International Association of Human-Animal Interaction Organization, IAHIO, in which I am a board member since September 2024, a year in which we had the honor to organize the International IAHIO Conference in Romania. And yeah, this is a short presentation of the master program. We came up also with a motto that covers actually a lot of approaches that you already presented today. And I was very happy to see speakers yesterday that I am citing them a lot. Some of them I know them personally. So our motto is get involved, learn to be responsible through our professions, I would say, through our knowledge, a motivation to share, and empathetic, but in a, again, responsible manner toward people, animals, and the environment. And this is actually what we call a humane education approach. And I've seen that all of you have already touched this definition in your work in various forms of humane education. I want to acknowledge that the content of my presentation is a result and outcome of a collective work of various friends, people from Poland, Norway, Switzerland, and Romania. And this was actually part of an international project within the Erasmus frame. And we came up with a booklet, which is called Animal Involvement Recommendations for Involving Cats and Farm Animals in Animal-Assisted Services. And this booklet is available for free on the website of the project, which was, the length of the project was from 2021 to 2024. So it is closed now, but still the outcomes such as free courses, online classes, but also materials such this one, also scientific publications are available for free. And I will be sharing, after I finish my presentation, the links that you are having here in the chat box, but of course also you can get them in a PDF format included in the slides that I will be sent to Dr. Sunday. And yeah, well, I'm also referring here, also we included references from the standards in research, education, and practice elaborated by our colleagues from Ohio. And I will be talking a bit later about the needs for standards in animal-assisted services when we talk about farm animals. Here you can see some pictures of our conference in Romania. This is actually the main building of my university. And I just put some pictures from the website of Ohio, and I'm encouraging you to have a look at it because there are a lot of resources and the webinars that are being announced with free participation. And of course, Sunday is also a regional representative, but I will talk about this again, about the importance a bit later on, about the importance of the regional representatives within the mission and values of Ohio. So our conference, next one is happening soon. It's called Wellbeing for All, quite similar in terms of approaches to the conference today. And I really appreciate the topics and the structure of this conference. So innovations and insights in human-animal interactions. Innovation, but in a responsible manner, taking into account the welfare, the positive welfare. Now we are operating with this concept of both humans and animals that are included in animal-assisted services. Here we have a recent, very recent, actually, Amy Binder, who was the first keynote speaker yesterday. She's the main, the first author, but there is a group of authors that worked from Ohio that worked on this new terminology that is being now used in publications and planning and development of various programs. And here I won't insist upon this because you have here you have the link to the publication and this visual, which is very used already by myself, for example, in the classes with our students, but also in other presentations, allows us to see the three categories of animal-assisted services: animal-assisted treatment. So we do not operate with animal-assisted therapy because therapy is much broader, but the treatment is what you get. In this case, we can include farm animals in various programs, such as forms of treatment, such as forms of therapy, as occupational therapy, psychotherapy, physical physiotherapy, and so on. And I will be discussing today more about occupational therapy field, in which there is a lot of work already done on in terms of inclusion of farm animals. Then we have, and you see there are very nice descriptions, very clear one, comprehensive, on distinctions among these categories. The other one is animal-assisted education. Now, while we do animal-assisted education, we can focus on various variables, but we cannot ignore that a therapeutic effect of the animal presence might be there, even if we do not measure, assess in some ways that therapeutic impact. However, we allow ourselves to be aware of this, and maybe we can transform an animal-assisted education in an animal-assisted treatment. It is possible to do so. And then we have animal-assisted support programs. They were initially before known as animal-assisted activities. Here we can have visitation programs, and many other forms. And there you can see the distinction. I won't stay too long because I want to keep my time as neat as possible. So don't forget that you have for free access to these publications, and I'm encouraging you to have a look at it and use it accordingly in your future presentations. Also, we based our booklet on the content of my presentation, but also the practical approaches in our educational programs, but also in our practice on the standards and research and education that are promoted and elaborated by the section on human-animal interaction, APA, Division 17, and there you can also have a look and check the materials, and they are being updated, like also the materials produced by IAHIO. They are continuously being updated, but you can also have a look at the original papers, such white papers, guidelines, and so on. So now we dive into the concepts and the benefits in farm animal assisted services. My work has been easy by my previous speakers, because some of them have already presented to you some of the theories and the approaches that I included in my presentation. So here we talk about farm animal assisted interventions / services. They are being used in an interchangeable manner still, and they are often found in the literature. If you have a look, and you will find quite a lot of scoping reviews, systematic reviews, meta-analysis within the green care frame. This is such an umbrella term that includes all the approaches in which resources of nature provide health, well-being benefits to people. But here, because we are within a community of veterinarians, of course, our focus is also on the well-being and positive welfare and the health, as Dr. Elynn said. Without well-being, without positive welfare, we cannot talk about health. So what about the animals that are being included? Maybe you have noticed that I didn't use the verb use, but to include. So this is not a tip, it's an important piece of information that is being promoted, and in terms of this discourse that is being promoted by IAHIO. Not to use the animals, but to include the animals in programs, services, and so on. And here I'm presenting I just made a selection of papers, but from my point of view, they are very insightful in terms of content and understanding of the farm animal inclusion in various forms of therapeutic contexts and educational programs. And so, but most here, some of the authors are like Marta, for example. They are part of IAHIO, they are our colleagues. And this farm animal assisted services is considered, according to this recent review, most often part of occupational therapy. Now, being a psychologist myself, of course, I'm familiar, and I've seen that there are people from the social work here, isn't it? I know that some of you already introduced yourself. Also, our speaker from yesterday, our colleague, Dr. Philip Tedeschi, comes from the field of social work, where occupational therapy is, but also in psychology, of course, and is very known. This is a definition, which is an operational definition, refers to it as client-oriented health profession concerned with promoting health and well-being through occupation, through activities related to occupation. And when we talk about farm animals, I don't have to ask you or to give you examples, because all of us have in mind various activities that can relate to occupational therapy. So, as I said, the beneficiaries are usually involved in animal caretaking activities, of course, guided by those who are offering or organizing the services or organizing the visits, the visiting programs, the educational program, and they should be guided in a meaningful way. And reflection is part of the transformative process that we want to get in the settings that we are working with. If we are targeting the stress reduction or development of empathy and so on, then we construct the reflective questions in such ways to target those variables. So these animal caretaking activities, they are those with occupational valence, such as brushing, feeding the animals. Of course, we can also target the development of fine motor coordination and many other variables that are in relation to motor rehabilitation, physical rehabilitation. So who benefits from farm animal assisted services? I've already heard in the presentations yesterday about categories of beneficiaries. So when we talk about human individual from our species, here we have a wide range of categories, and there are many, many systematic reviews that already integrated a lot of the studies existent based of course, inclusion criteria, that they already integrated these benefits, categories of benefits and various categories of beneficiaries. And you will find physical and mental disabilities or challenges, psychopathologies such as depression, anxiety, people with poor level of social inclusion, abused or affected by addiction, or institutionalized elderly persons, and many, many others. And what about the animals? In this review of Gallardi et al. That I'm citing, published like 4 years ago, the farm animals involved, although the effect size of the interventions were very good, so there were benefits, expected benefits on humans, there was not too much information about how the animals were selected according to their ethological characteristics, personality, and many other information. So here the authors have identified a gap in knowledge. We need to talk about the selection criteria, or at least indicators of animal well-being, while doing or when we are preparing to plan and to implement any category of animal-assisted services. And I know I read the questions that you posed before the conferences, and I tried to arrange a bit the information in my slides to already answer to your question, to some of your questions. So another approach that it's very commonly found in the literature is this care farm approach. And I know some of my colleagues that are being right now in the audience, and they are part also of IAHIO, are working a lot on this care farm, and they are having publications on this topic. Just shortly, this approach refers to the use of farms and agriculture of nature, agricultural landscapes, for the promotion of human health, social inclusion, and educational benefits through farm activity. So we can go back to that visuals with the terminology and see where we can easily place the care farm approach. And there are already a lot of studies, research-informed publication data that are encouraging this care farm approach in terms of inclusion the farm animals in animal-assisted services. But we have again to be careful about the local legislations, the local procedures, the guidelines that, of course, IAHIO offers guidelines that I would say there are universal in terms of promoting one health, one welfare approach. And there are a lot of guidelines, but I will be talking about this at the end of the conference shortly. Just I will be showing you where you can find them. So there are some guidelines of animal-assisted services for the inclusion of farm animals per categories of species. But as veterinarians, you already have protocols of assessing the welfare of the animals. So you can use those too when you work with animals in various activities. Now there are a number of care farms that the number is increasing in Europe, but also in other continents. And there are people willing to travel from one place to another to exchange good practices that are focused on the well-being of the animals, because we already know a lot on the benefits on humans, but again, there is a gap of knowledge on the indicators of positive effects in animals, agency, and so on, that have to be taken into account to have this care farm, to maintain them functional. So here I just selected some of the papers that I think they are very, they offer a lot of examples in regards to the approaches that I already mentioned, such as care farming for people with dementia. Then we have evaluating care farming as a means to care for those in trauma and grief. Here the author is a colleague of us, Dr. Joanne Cacciatore, that she works a lot on grief and post-traumatic growth after losing beings that we love, that we are attached to. Then we have this really beautiful, all of the papers from my point of view are significant, animal-assisted green care farming for patients with mental and physical disorders. And here the main author is Alex Sarksian, that works a lot with ducks. So also birds, farm birds can be included in various categories of animal-assisted services. Let me check just the time, and yeah, I'm okay. Now, here, I already told you that my job has been easy because yesterday, the previous speakers already told you about some explanatory frameworks of the benefits of the mechanisms of positive human-animal interactions, including the farm animals, on various aspects of human health, mental health, physical health, social health, public health. So apparently the research with farm animals indicates that the effects on humans are mediated more or less by the same mechanism as for animal-assisted services that include other species like companion animals, such as dogs and cats. Also, there is a lot of research on horses. And here we have explanations, explanatory frames from ethology, anthropology, evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology, that you will find the explanatory frames in most of the or at least part of them, in all the studies addressing the animal-assisted services that include farm animals, but also companion animals. And here we can talk about the benefits of, I already gave you some example, stress reduction, cognitive activation or deactivation, because sometimes the presence of an animal can increase the arousal of an individual. Sometimes it can, I would say, regulate it by decreasing it. And then we can, there are a lot of studies on the animal presence impact or association with enhancement of social skills. I myself worked a lot on inclusion of dogs and horses in therapeutic programs of children with autistic neurotype. Then decrease of social isolation, so decrease of probability of cardiovascular diseases, and many, many other benefits. So most of these theories, they emphasize the intrinsic qualities of animals. Here, I asked my cat to give me the consent to be put here. So yeah, but she's right here next to me. And so the intrinsic qualities of animals, it refers to their phenotype, but also to their availability for their direct interaction, most of the time, not always, acceptance of proximity, which is often related to a calming effect, expression of interest, motivation, but also for interaction, but also positive effects, manifestation of positive effects in humans. And there are many studies on these intrinsic qualities of animals in the context of animal-assisted services. And now I won't insist on that because it was already presented to you, while you will find this hypothesis very, very cited, the biophilia hypothesis. And that was coined by Wilson. He was a biologist, entomologist, working on sociobiology and the social organization of insects, of especially particularly ants. Kellert and Wilson, and this biophilia hypothesis is highly cited by experts in animal-assisted services, assuming that argues that we humans, we possess a genetically based propensity to attend to be interested initially in a neutral way, but it can become a positive way, but also a negative way in terms of harming others. But this one, it refers as a neutral, which is more prone to become a positive attraction to other living organisms. So it supports through education, guidance, the positive effects of nature-assisted activities in the fields such as rural and ecological social work. There is a lot of work done also this in ecological social work that involve farm animals and farm settings. Then we have the self-efficacy theory that applies a lot in terms of explanatory, offering explanation to the effects of farm animals and farm care activities within the frame of occupational therapy, but also education activities and other types of animal-assisted services. Well, self-efficacy, we all know what it means. Of course, there are many categories, professional self-efficacy and many others. But generally, it's a person believes that one can successfully, that person produce a desired outcome. So it's like a goal-oriented approach. So therefore, it's only logical that this part of occupational therapy involving farm animals can be easily designed to enhance self-efficacy, because you see here some pictures, just feed the animals and you will see that they are eating. So you see the consequence, you see what is happening, an end of the activity. The goal has been checked, has been fulfilled. So farm animal assisted activities covers a variety of work tasks that can be easily tailored, adjust to each person's abilities and needs, such as routine, but again, guided in a meaningful way and coated in reflections, meaningful reflections. And of course, here we can easily develop the part of, we can build an architecture of care, of caring for other living creatures. And here we tap into the cooperative care, because you are a lot of veterinarians around and you already know this concept. Then we have this emotional and behavioral synchronization model. Sometimes you can find it as emotional synchronization or only as behavioral synchronization, but it can be also found in the literature as together emotional and behavioral synchronization model that explains that direct contact with life forms, positive contact, other than humans, so we talk here about a multi-species presence, can have a modulatory effect on the psychological and physiological parameters that are associated with positive social interactions. And I remember that yesterday already the oxytocin was mentioned. There are very comprehensive papers, quite old, like 15 years ago, and even like 20 years ago, published on the role of oxytocin, which we all know about the impact of this peptide hormone on our own lives, but also on milk production, for example, in goats and cows and other mammals, but also on the importance of this hormone, or some researchers are considering it as neurohormone that regulates physiological, psychological, and behavioral functions, but all related to, in our case, interpersonal or inter-individual interactions. And now there are a lot of studies on the importance of oxytocin in the process of the benefits that animal presence, but also human presence, can have on both sides of human-animal, both actors, categories of human-animal interactions. And you can use these visuals, I will send them to you. Then the attachment theory was already explained very, very nicely by Dr. Lee Zaloff yesterday. Here I just want to mention this book, Attachment to Pets. It already has an age, but it was one of the authors is our dear collaborator, Professor Dennis Turner, who also works a lot on cats, but also he was involved in our project, Animals for People, that had as an outcome this booklet on the inclusion of farm animals in animal-assisted services. While humans, we already know that they have, the animals can meet the prerequisites for an attachment bond. It was explained yesterday. Proximity seeking, safe haven, secure base. They also manifest separation distress. So now there are a lot of studies showing that actually not only we humans can perceive animals as social support, but also the other way around. And there are a lot of neurobiological studies that are being done and behavioral observations and behavioral methods that indicate that there are research informed data that animals are able to form attachment toward individuals, conspecific individuals, but also heterospecific from other species that they own. And then we have this integrative model, the biopsychological model of health. I'm checking the time. I'm okay, good. In which shortly this model explains that actually the health, mental, psychological, and again the public health, if you want, social health. And yeah, I'm quite often referring to the public health because a lot of policies are that are implemented in public health are based on the research that is being done in the field of human-animal interaction, including animal-assisted services. So it was already stated many times that today and yesterday that animals are a significant component of human ecologies. So this model that you see, it takes into account, you see here the diagram, the biological factors, psychological, social, and environmental factors. Interpersonal relationship, you see it in the middle, but of course these interpersonal relationships also refer to our connections with animals. Even the witness of, for example, of a cruelty to animals event can impact the witnesses, isn't it, in a serious manner? And there were a lot of children that were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder just by being unintentional witness to animal cruelty. And interestingly enough, this PTSD induced by witnessing animal cruelty can be addressed in a therapeutic form, treatment in this case, by animal-assisted services. So I'm approaching toward the end because I want to give you some current direction in farm animal-assisted services that are coming from experts like you, from veterinary medicine, animal husbandry, so not necessarily people that are currently working in the field of animal assistance services, but they are interested on the field and they would like to get involved or to be part of the teams that are doing this and these types of services. And here I'm just giving you an example of a huge network cost, and that is still going on. It's a consortium of it's a network actually of researchers from all over the world, like I think 40 countries, probably even more. So the researchers, but not only from the field of veterinary medicine, but also from philosophy, anthropology, educational sciences, psychology, and many, many others that are interested on consensus on the definition of positive animal welfare, but also on defining indicators, behavioral, but also physiological indicators of positive animal welfare. You might think, why positive? Why? I mean, I had the discussion with a dear friend of mine. She's in the audience. I saw her that she's promoting, Irina, hello, that she's promoting anthropology. And we were together to a training school recently in Utrecht on the topic on how to communicate about animal affective states to lay people, which you all do when you have somebody coming to your to you as a veterinarian, and you see that animals in suffering, how to communicate about these effects, emotional, affective states to the owner. Yeah. I have still 5 minutes. Okay, so this is an example that you can check it. It has a very elaborated web page, and they, my colleagues, because there are various working groups. One working group came up with a very recent publication. It's called a consensus on the definition of positive animal welfare, because positive comes from is defined as the animal flourishing through experience that facilitate positive mental states, agentic experiences, and the development of competence and resilience. So while animal welfare, when we talk about animal welfare, we have in mind how to alleviate and minimize, exclude as much as possible the sufferance or the negative experience on animals. Positive animal welfares come with even more than that. So it's a reframing of the a reframing that has been done in terms of operational definitions, and they are working also on indicators, behavioral indicators, on how to assess this positive animal welfare and how to plan it in order to prevent suffering. So here I will just go very fast through this, because before this publication on, which is very important, I mean, it's like, it comes, it's like a declaration. I cannot compare it with the declaration on animal sentience from Cambridge, but still it has a huge impact on the practice, on the views, on the positions of various researchers around the world. So I highly recommended you and warmly recommended you to download it and to use it in the future in your discourse and in your practice. So before this, like 2 years before the publication came out, there was this one, another important publication, the agency domain and behavioral interactions, how to assess positive animal welfare using the 5 domains model. Now we all know the definition of agency, and I already had the presentation in, I think it was in April, also at the conference organized by our colleague, by Dr. Sunday. On agency refers to the capacity of individual animals to engage in voluntarily self-generated, goal-directed behavior that they are motivated to perform. Okay, and here I put, the arrows. Where can we put in within this model of the 5 domains model of welfare that stresses a lot the importance of, that indicates a lot the importance of mental state experiences. So farm animal assisted services, from my perspective, they can be easily placed here into the domain 4. Of course, all the others, as my previous colleague already stated. So domain 4, it refers to behavior interactions with environment, with animals, and with humans. So it's nicely put here that the farm animal assisted services, from the perspective of the animals, also of the humans, should cover this domain 4 of the 5 domains model of welfare. And then it's easy to have it in mind like that. And of course, all the 4 domains, nutrition, physical environment, health, and the behavior interactions, they all impact and they build together the domain 5, the mental state experiences, and of course the overall welfare. And now here I will not give you the definition of enrichment, but enrichment aligns with the as behavior interactions. And you can find this in the paper, in this paper, okay, this visual. And here I personally see that animal assisted services, and in this case farm animal assisted services, because we are talking about farm animals, they can be easily considered, if they are planned and done in a responsible manner, as enrichment, strategies of behavior enrichment for animals. And this is, and then I will finish, and I would also indicate, I'm also indicated to you this very important, this paper that I'm presenting to our students ever since it appeared publicly, the integrative model of human-animal interactions, a one health, one welfare systemic approach to studying human-animal interactions, because this is like, it's a very nice base to put on it the other publication that just appeared this year on the consensus on positive animal welfare. And it's a quite long paper, but it's really comprehensive, and it helps you understand a lot about what an animal perceives, or in terms of safety. We might consider that an environment is safe, but actually the animal might see it in a different way. And these farm animal assisted services, they, in order to take into account the welfare of humans, animal, and the positive animal welfare of humans and animals, they imply interspecies emotional and behavioral regulation. And here I won't insist, it's really the last slide. It's an amazing figure schema that help us understand what this interspecies interactive emotional regulation process means. And imagine that you have a group of children coming to visit our farm, and then you say, I'm going to bring you a donkey to play with it, okay, I intentionally put it because we are not using it for animals. So a human attempts to steer a gregarious animals, a horse or a donkey, by using a means of restraint like a lead rope, and then we observe some manifestations of emotions in that animal. So we have this interactive session, okay, and then we observe the behavior. Animal might manifest, if it's not used to human presence, a state of panic in the worst case. We observe some behaviors, but here we have the Jan Panskep model of emotions, and we observe the behavior, distress vocalization, startle reaction, shaking of the head, freezing. For this, we have to know how to observe them, isn't it? So we see the balance, the negative balance of these emotions, that in order that we should try to diminish as much as possible this balance, and switch the state of the animals in the direction of care, seeking, play, lust. So that the animals should feel safe while interacting with people in the context of animal assisted services. And here we have some guidelines on how to do it. The human should show a compassionate attitude, knowledgeable one, how to be able to observe what is happening with the animals, and then regulate himself, herself, themselves, the emotions and the behaviors. And then, of course, the animals, based on the interaction with these self-regulated humans, will be able to move from the negative affective states to positive affective states. And that's it. Sorry, I think I'm over with 3 minutes. Sorry for that. But I can answer my questions in the chat, so we don't have to stay now, dear Praise. Sorry that I was a bit over, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Alina. What a wonderful presentation. And yes, we did keep to time. So, Professor Alina will be in the comment section in the chat box. So please drop your questions. She'll be there to answer the questions, and we'll reach out to her for the slides and the presentation and everything. So please drop your questions. You want to say something, you want to ask us something, you can request for a mail if you'd like to communicate with her as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Alina. It was amazing.
Thank you. So I'll keep answering to the questions in the chat so we can move on. Thank you, Praise. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so moving on quickly, our next speaker is going to talk to us on the topic benefits and considerations when incorporating farm animals into therapy programs. Our next speaker is a respected advisor in farm-based interventions who offers expert counsel across the United States on the creation, funding, and maintenance of farm-based therapy programs. Our vision is to foster partnerships with service providers to launch responsible initiatives that meld the therapeutic benefits of agriculture, with the need for compassionate human services. She currently serves on the Green Care Advisory Board for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's Office of Youth and Young Adult Services Bureau of Substance Addiction. She is also an animal welfare auditor for the Greener World, a leading animal welfare and sustainability label across North America. At TEDx Scranton Talk, How Cows and a Cornfield Helped Heal Childhood Trauma, reviews her personal journey through childhood trauma and how it fired her passion for initiating the care farming program at Hillside Farms. Please join me to welcome Dr. Suzanne Kapral.
Okay, video and there we are. Hello. Thank you so much, Dr. Alina. That was an incredible, incredible presentation. I learned so much, and I just want to thank you. That was awesome. I am going to get to my screen so we could keep on time a little bit here, and then just please let me know when you can see the screen, okay? Are we good?
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So today's presentation that I'm going to go through is a little bit different than the previous presentations because what this is going to focus on specifically are the benefits and considerations of a care farm. Okay, and I'm going to be sharing the actual care farm where I do a lot of work, and there's an emphasis not only on the educational and therapeutic aspect, but the human-animal interactions with an emphasis on farm animal welfare. So very quickly about me, I am the director at the Lands at Hillside Farms, which is a 428-acre educational dairy farm. We're located in northeastern Pennsylvania. And about 15 years ago, I developed and created, implemented a care farm program. So we're in our 15th year now. We primarily focus on individuals, adults and children who have experienced trauma. So my overall responsibilities, I am not a veterinarian and I am not a mental health professional. I create the programs and then find fundings to build and sustain various programs. I'm also a farm animal welfare auditor for A Greener World. So I have the actual honor and pleasure to travel to farms throughout the United States and Canada and audit farms to basically see how the animals are living, how they're kept, and even in some instances, how the animals are slaughtered if they are in that food production line. I have a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania in animal behavior, animal welfare, and then also in occupational organizational management from a different university. All right, that's enough about me. I want to get going here. So the farm that we're going to be talking about today, Hillside Farms, is really a historic 438-acre nonprofit educational dairy farm. And what's important about this farm is this farm that was founded in 1881 was slated to be raised and have condos and big mansions built throughout this whole area that you're seeing. So we had a visionary who was also a veterinarian from Penn Vet. We had a visionary who actually went to the family that owned all this land, and he cut a deal. And he said, you've still got this operational dairy farm. Let's do what we could to raise money over a period of time, specifically 5 years. This nonprofit that we're going to create, we want to buy it off of you. Will you do this deal? And the family said yes. So as a result, this educational dairy farm will never be developed. It is preserved, and it will just go on for eternity with the process and the purpose of teaching individuals. And you can kind of see what the actual barn looks like down here, our dairy barn, and then the land across. So what we're going to do today is a few different objectives. We want to understand the roles that farm animals can play in farm-based therapy sessions. And again, we're an educational dairy farm, but for this particular presentation, I'm going to be concentrating on the therapeutic aspects. Talk a little bit about how farm animal interventions differ from the traditional animals, when you think of dogs, horses, rabbits, even guinea pigs, etc. And then let's talk about some of the potential benefits of incorporating farm animals in activities and therapy sessions. Of note, we do not provide the mental health services, okay? We partner with occupational therapists. We have an affiliate agreement with a local university where occupational therapy doctoral students come to the farm to provide, to do their field work. And we also partner with mental health professionals. So we bring those individuals in to run the therapeutic side of our care farming program. So when we're talking about animal-assisted intervention, and I was so happy to hear about IHEO because there's so many definitions floating out there, and there's so many different types of interpretations when we're working in this scope. So I pulled something from the American Veterinary Medical Association that kind of talks about how animal-assisted interventions are recognized within that field. And what I found interesting is it describes this as the utilization of various species of animals, okay, in diverse manners beneficial to humans, excuse me. So we're going to see a theme going back and forth, the benefits of humans and some animal benefits, but really when we're out there, a lot of the benefits that we're talking about in this type of programs still focuses on humans. So under AAI, we see that there's therapy, there's education, and then there's the animal-assisted activities. Also from the American Veterinary Medical Association, we have a few different topics about the goals. What I find important is the second bullet point, animal-assisted therapy is delivered or directed by health or human service providers working within the scope of their profession. And what we see here, and I see this often in my travels, is we have individuals that say, you know what, I have a cow and a couple goats, and I think I'm going to start a care farm. I think I can do farm-based therapy because I have a few animals over here, or I know a farmer that said I can come to the farm and kind of use his or her animals. And that could be catastrophic on many levels. And we'll talk about that as we get further into this presentation. What is also important is that the process of animal-assisted therapy, animal-assisted interactions, it's documented and evaluated. You need to have the steps and you need to have your benchmarks because frankly, you need to see if this is working. So a few terms to remember. That farm-based therapy, this is the general term. It's also referred to as care farming, green care, nature-based therapy, ecotherapy. And going back to IHEO, there's currently not universal terms across the board, so we're all speaking the same language. And it's really critical that we all begin to speak the same language so we all have a universal understanding of not only what's expected from the programs, but perhaps what's expected from the animals as well. So for consistency in this presentation, I will be calling this care farming. All of the photos that you are going to see in this presentation come from the farm with the exception of two, and I'll point that out later on. And we do have permission to use all of the photos of the children. So if we're looking at the definition of care farming, it really is the use of commercial farms or agricultural landscapes for promoting mental and physical health through normal farming activity. So when the children or the adults come to Hillside Farms in this example, they're actually working the farm. They consider themselves kind of co-farmers, shadowing our farm staff and doing many of the farm chores. So also when you're looking at what kind of care farming setting, so basically you have two types. You have your smaller farms that's really created to do maybe a cultivation of crops, rearing of livestock. Like for instance, our dairy farm, we're milking 64 head. We are a small dairy farm, okay? Homesteaders, the family farm. And then we have the commercial farms, which are huge. So think of Land O'Lakes and Tyson Foods, Dole Foods. Those are the large farms where there could be thousands and thousands of animals on a farm. So when you're thinking about that, which environment do you see that would be more beneficial, not only for the individuals, but the individual animals as well? So basically, if care farming really is going to be hands-on or experiential, it is more realistic to focus on the smaller farms or the smaller agricultural settings. Why? Well, for one thing, it's more personal, and it's much easier to manage the human safety aspect. It's much more manageable in terms of animal welfare. You have opportunities to really work with the farm staff. And the environment is typically more of a natural, excuse me, or even a more humane setting. What I would like to share, though, down here is nothing is foolproof and no animal is bomb-proof. Excuse me, I don't want to start coughing. Our popular animals, of course, hens, donkeys, cows, calves, goats, sheep, pigs, and horses. So I'm often asked, what are the animals supposed to do when in a care farming situation? The farm animals really don't need to do anything. All they need to do is be farm animals. And that's because the model we have is the children or adults participating are in essence co-farmers while they're in these sessions. The participants also have the responsibility, at least in part, for providing basic animal care at the farm. So what does that mean? Well, the responsibilities that we do, mucking stalls, replacing the bedding, cleaning the feed and water buckets, adding food and water, maybe bottle feeding or bucket feeding the calves, exercising the animals. In some cases, we will do halter training, but that is exceptional depending on the individuals at the farm as well as the animals themselves. Grooming the animals, picking, washing, packaging eggs that are for sale at the farm, at our farm dairy store. When we're in a care farming setting, it's also an incredible opportunity for partnership and stewardship. And what I mean by that is that there's value added opportunities. So individuals coming to the farm can learn about so much. We can take everyday farm science and include that into agriculture and the earth sciences, animal care and animal welfare. So here you see the photos of some of our kiddos that are actually preparing the milk replacer for the calves. So they're measuring, they're feeling the temperature. There's a whole bunch of experiential learning that's going on here. We also stress the importance of teaching the source of our food and why we have to respect the animals. Here's an example. We have many streams that go through our property. We have riparian buffer zones throughout all of these streams. We do not have our dairy barn anywhere near the streams. So there's reason why we do everything on this farm, and having these groups of children or adults gives us a tremendous opportunity, not from just the therapeutic aspect, but the teaching opportunities as well. And this ties into the One Health, One Welfare platform, and that is we are all interconnected. And what we would say here at Hillside Farms is what is good for our farm animals is good for the environment, and it's good for humans. When you're thinking of food animals, whether it be dairy, whether it be beef, the better the animals are treated, the higher welfare. It's going to tie into better for the environment. Again, kind of going back to the riparian buffer zones that we have. And then you're going to get a higher quality end product, whether that's milk with higher CLAs, or it's going to be a higher quality type of meat, or eggs, depending on your omega-3 ratios. So just reviewing basically, licensed mental health professionals are responsible when you're tying into care farming or farm-based therapy. Everybody may want to just do a care farm or green care, but you really need to have the qualifications. The farm staff, in essence, are there to provide guidance, support, and farm-related education. And ultimately, it's not the therapists. The farm staff have the ultimate responsibility for the safety and welfare for both the humans and the animals while these sessions are taking place. So here are some photos of a care farming session from 2 years ago, and I'd like to go over briefly potential benefits of care farming. This is exciting because we partnered with a local university a few years back, and they did a 5-year study. The occupational therapy department did a 5-year study, qualitative and quantitative, of the effects and the outcomes of care farming on children who have experienced grief and trauma. And we were highlighted at the World Federation of Occupational Therapy Foundation, and that was in Cape Town, South Africa, and that was in 2018. So I'm excited because I could pool I can go to Cabby and Elsevier, and I can go to animals, and I can get a lot of research that supports this works, that care farming works. But to actually see the research and to have the paper from this 5-year study and to have our work highlighted at this World Federation conference was just fabulous for us and very exciting. And it's just great to revisit it from years ago and see how far we've come since 2018. And these are just some of the questions, some examples of what we were looking at. And so the research questions for this particular 5-year study was, does the inclusion of the farm animals and horticulture help the children experiencing grief? Does it help them to learn skills which will help them cope and overcome barriers of personal challenges? Also, does the shared experience of being with other grieving children help them learn strategies to promote positive psychosocial skills? And the results were positive and encouraging. The results showed an increase in coping skills and social connections, increased and improved self-regulation skills, positive responses to structured routine and responsibility, with a decrease in non-preferred behavior. What was especially exciting here is, yes, it's showing the effectiveness of care farming, but when the children left the farm, they were able to carry what they learned into their everyday lives. So that allowed them to do more self-regulation. It wasn't just a light switch. They didn't lose it when they left our care farming program. So we talked about, yes, there are definite potential benefits of care farming programs with farm animal interaction. But there's also some welfare concerns that I do want to briefly include. So what we're going to do in this part of the presentation is to basically understand some common attitudes regarding farm animal sentiency, learn how the attitudes towards the farm animal sentiency and related behaviors can decrease farm animal welfare in care farming. And then I would like to take a few photos and have you evaluate photos of animals in a care farming environment. One thing that I've noticed, my childhood, my son's childhood, and many of the kids that we work with in our programs here is children's early exposure and the introductions that they have to animals through books, cartoons, movies, and these are all wonderful. Okay, Babe and Click Clack Moo, How's That Type, and The Lion King. But with caution, depending on the child and the circumstances, sometimes these books or exposures to different movies, or my gosh, now online, Instagram or TikTok, it can really skew the perceptions in terms of expectations of the animal's behaviors, as well as the animal's biological needs. Anthropomorphism. So we understand this to be the tendency to attribute human forms, behaviors, and emotions on non-animals or objects. So it can be okay in some cases, but usually it can be very detrimental to the animal. And here we have a birthday cake because Pooh the pig was with us for 1 year, and that was great, and we wanted to celebrate, and our staff made a birthday cake for Pooh. Okay, that was great. Okay, so really, other than Pooh having a little slice of cake and all the adults and children standing around clapping, that was pretty okay. But when we look at animals being dressed up, animals being used as props, they become more of an object. In the wild, even in its most natural state, you're not going to see animals walking around with Christmas hats on. They're not going to be wearing caps. They're certainly not going to be wearing ballerina outfits. So I'm saying that there may be a place in some instances where you're doing something with the animal, but does that animal have agency? Okay, did the animal have a choice? In this case, wearing the tutu, no, that animal did not have any choice. So not only was the goat wearing the costume, she was walked for hours throughout a crowd during a festival that was being held at the farm. I don't see that necessarily as good welfare, and I would see this as something very stressful to her. There's also cultural anthropomorphism. We do this a lot here in the States. I know I hear it so often till this day. We judge people and we judge people using negative animal terms and things that I hear often: dirty, stupid, pig-headed, you're an uncooperative, lazy, bird-brained, whatever. Okay, or even on the news, they were living like filthy animals in a pigsty, or oh, look at that, she's chicken-hearted, he's chicken-hearted, or they are all of them a sheep mentality. But we rarely hear that when we're speaking with the animals that might be living in our homes, such as dogs and cats, perhaps parrots. So again, we have a culture that can see food animals as a less than. So when I would do a Google search, and I would do a Google search on traditional animals in therapy and education, that would be, again, your dogs, your guinea pig, your rabbit, your horses. And I came up with over 800,000 results of published papers, publications. But when I did the same for farm animals, I came up with over 100,000 results. But what I noticed is the majority of the publications focused on the benefits for the humans. Okay, we really didn't have a huge emphasis on the benefits for the animals, or how could we best incorporate the animals where they are not stressed, that we're not placing them in a stressful environment. The recent Animal Welfare Act, the most recent is August 2024. And I wanted to pull this out. I actually included this in my research at Penn Vet, because when this Animal Welfare Act defines animal, it goes through everything that it includes an animal except what's excluded. Okay? And that includes other farm animals. It includes your food animals. So there's different levels of protection depending on the type of animal that we are referring to. So basically, it really does not provide the protections for farm animals. Farm animals do not have the same level of protections that we would for our dogs, our breeding animals, our cats. You can still, of course, be fined for what would be considered perhaps farm animal abuse. But again, so much of it can happen in an instant that the protections are not there like they would be for our more common animals. I found this quote very interesting. Farm animals are commonly perceived as mere food animals, and in some populations and cultures, they do believe that cows, chickens, goats, sheep, and poultry, they simply do not require the same level of care and respect as our popular household companions. And that is an attitude and a belief that through care farming And if we do it the right way, and if we do our care farming and our farm-based therapy with animal welfare in mind, we could start to change the attitudes. Because if you look at this, we have children who have experienced trauma. We have many children who have been abused, many children who come from generational addiction, those who have been removed from their home and they're in foster care. So these kids have a lot going on, okay? If we can take these children and show them through working with these animals the value the animals have, that the animals have abilities, they have cognitive abilities, their cognition is high, they could feel empathy. There's many of the things that we experience that animals can experience and do experience as well. So sentience, we spoke about this yesterday and again this morning. So you know the research supports that farm animals are capable of experience a wide range of emotions, and they do have complex social lives. So I pulled some of the examples of the animals we work with. Pigs are shown to have long-term memories. They do show signs of empathy, and they can understand cause and effect. Pigs are really smart. Chickens can recognize and remember individual humans and other chickens. They do show emotional cognition. The emotions of one chicken can indeed spread to other chickens. And we know that cows can form close bonds, and they will become distressed when separated from their social group. They will call out, and they will continue to call out. So from a welfare perspective, if cows are separated for any reason, they need to have sight and sound. They need to be able to call to one another and see one another. That's so important, or you're going to stress the animal terribly. So again, if we're looking at the 5 freedoms that started in 1965, then in 1994, we began to say, hey, there's more than just, we can have hunger and thirst, that's fine, but what about the nutrition? Are we feeding our animals properly? What's the environment that they live in? How is their overall health? How many times do we have a vet check? The behavior and the mental state. What are these 5 domains? And then if we're looking at the 5 domains in an educational setting or a therapeutic setting, we need to take a look at all of the concerns. Because if you take animals that are not used to being around children, or a lot of individuals think of large farm tours, okay? Think of animals that are walking through festivals. The noise level, the hovering over the animals, the stress level, the startle reflexes. And you know what? If an animal gets startled, it could kick and it could bite. It's not the animal's fault. It was just being an animal. It was afraid. It was anxious. It could even be angry. Another thing that we need to take into consideration, which we do here at Hillside Farms, is the longevity and the lifespan of the animals. And are these animals isolated? If you think about a classroom, I know when I was growing up, we'd have a guinea pig. The guinea pig would be in the terrarium, and the guinea pig would just basically kind of sit there. It didn't really have enrichment. And if you think of the lifespan of a guinea pig, or even in some cases, a mouse, what do they do? Do you think that's a high quality? If that is a high quality of life for that animal, and then what could we do to improve that quality of life? It's not that we should not be including animals in education or therapy sessions, but we do need to continue to look at the animal's perspective. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to share a few photos with you. These are the photos, with the exception of 2 photos, from our farm. And I'd like you to just take 30 seconds and see if you can discover, share what you think is going on here and what do you see as any potential welfare issues. These were pullets that came. They were very young. We did not hatch them on the farm. They came in the mail. And our summer programs basically last 10 weeks. So the idea was to raise these birds inside so they get used to being around kids. All right. So these birds were in this cage with this removable top here on top of the cage for basically 10 weeks total. So if we're looking at this, what would you see as a situation that would not be high animal welfare? I mean, there's food and there's water over here. I could see a little slice of sunshine here. and they could scratch because they've got their bedding down. But you know, there's no purchase. There's nowhere for an animal. If the animal is stressed or just wants to be alone, there's nowhere for any of those birds to go. The birds are under fluorescent lights. And depending on the type of light that is being used in a building, it's quite possible that those birds had a strobe effect. They saw the lights as a strobe effect the entire time those lights were on. And one other thing that we noticed, I definitely spoke up about this, was, excuse me, let me just go back to this. The top of the cage, it's not going to go back. There we go. The top of the cage was the only way that the birds could get out of the cage. So the children would walk over, take the roof off, and swoop down and pick up the birds to hold the birds. Now, how do you think that made the bird feel? Like, did the bird think what was coming down to get it? So right here is an example of so many things that we could have done better. We've never done this again. This was a few years back, but coming from a welfare perspective, there were many black marks that we needed to correct. So our birds here outside, this child is absolutely thrilled to be able to go and pick up this hen, and he's just really excited, and he has an adult standing by, and this bird absolutely looks terrified because the way the bird is being held, the bird has no support, and you can actually see the wings being pushed back. So in a correct situation, we would not swoop down on a bird to pick the bird up. We would gently pick the bird up and cradle the bird so the bird felt supported, but the bird was not constricted, restricted, where it felt that it could not get away. Part of farm chores. So this is one of the sessions where we have the children go in and they're going to be mucking the stalls and they're going to be putting down bedding. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children in a pen with 3 large calves with the door open. So if we're looking at potential problems and threats, not only for the animals, but the humans. Now, if you're looking at an animal that gets excited, what's a calf going to do? A calf's going to run around, a calf is going to kick, they like to buck, they could even like to play. So there's a real chance here that a child could get kicked by one of the animals. There's way too many individuals in this stall. I don't see any adults in the pen with the animals. So all the children also have farm tools. Some are metal and some are plastic, but really there is nothing to protect the children or the animals. And if the animal right here in the front really wanted to book and escape, that wheelbarrow isn't going to stop it. That animal is going to go flat out, running out. It could go to the other side of the barn, or worse, it could even go to the street. Wouldn't be a happy ending. Now, these 2 photos are not hillside farms, but I have them with permission. This is a care farm that is outside of Boston that I sit on the advisory committee for. And I wanted to show these 2 photos because this is something that we think animals are so cute and I just want to hug them and I just want to give them a squeeze and it's wonderful. And this picture really could have ended in a not so great fashion. Obviously, this child wants to be with this pig, this potbelly pig, and it's a very sweet photo. But at any time, if that pig got startled, what do you think would happen? That child could get bit. The child could really get hurt being that close face to face with the pig. And again, it would not be the fault of the animal. Now, in this situation, this child really isn't doing anything other than sitting real close to this cow. What I would see in this situation is that if that cow got startled, bit by a fly, and needed to get up quickly, what could happen to that child? Or does that child know how to get away? Does that child know how to quickly escape, drop and roll, and get out of the animal's way? And what concerns me when we don't have a barrier and we have a child putting his or her face very close to an animal, all that animal needs to do is pick up its head or shake its head, maybe because there's a fly around, and you're going to get a broken nose. And I know that because it happened at our farm. So accidents happen, but they are accidents because farm staff was not paying closer attention and keeping that protective barrier between the individual and the animal. So there's other welfare considerations that we really need to look at. The ambient temperatures. Temperature, humidity can make a huge difference in the welfare of the animals, the behavior of the animals. Are the animals vocalizing more or less? You know your animals, you know the animals you're working with. We need to pay attention. The locomotion, is it more or less? Are they just kind of hanging out, or are they hiding? Are they pacing? Are they circling? Is there a withdrawal? Are we doing the repetitive movements, the stereotypies? Are we panting? And if we're panting, why? So what we need to consider is what's going on with the animal. The animal should never be forced to participate in any activity, in any farm-based activity. Agency is key, okay? What we do at Hillside Farms is we document the animals that are used in our programs, that we include in our programs, the date, whether it was morning or afternoon, and how long the sessions were. You cannot expect an animal, just like you would not expect a young child, to be able to go and go and go and go without taking a rest. So we document and keep a keen record on the animal, how long the animal was used and included in a session. Were there any signs? And what did we do about it? We removed the animal from the situation. The animal needs a well-deserved timeout. So when we are considering animal welfare, and you can see the child here wants to give a little bit of hay to the cows, to our dairy herd, and she is in a safe distance. And of course, you could see the bars here, so they're not going to bust out and cause any potential harm to the children. So what I'd like to briefly talk about here is determine some ways to help ensure that during a care farming setting, we keep the integrity of the program while keeping the animals safe and to the best possible extent relaxed and happy. And not everything with the animals needs to be hands-on, as we'll talk about briefly. You could see here, preparing breakfast for Pooh the pig. When we are considering what animals you're going to use, you know, you've got your farm animals. Not all farm animals are going to be a perfect match. We assess very carefully the species we want to use, what works, maybe what does not work, and you will know your animals, the temperament. Have these animals been socialized? Is there a willingness? Again, we're not going to force or pull any animal into a situation. Excuse me, does the animal have training? We have the health and then the environment. We partner with our local large animal veterinarian and, if necessary, our farmer. Our farmer knows the animals very well. We also pre-screen the humans, and here's why. We have individuals coming to the farm that are going to be spending many days working with our animals. Does the individual have a history of elopement? Does the individual have a history of violence against humans or other animals? We have removed children from our program in the past. Does the individual have any impulse control disorder? Pyromania. So when we're looking at a care farm, whether it's a smaller farm or whether it's a 438 acre farm like Hillside Farms, we need to think of several things. They're remote places. They often have a lot of land. They can provide a lot of places for someone to hide. Also, because you have a farm and there's farm equipment, there's tools, you have to keep in mind pitchforks, shovels, saws, hammers, machinery. It's situational awareness. We do not We encourage any child that may have a history of elopement or impulse control disorder to bring a therapeutic TSS worker with them. So there is someone who is with that individual one-on-one. So they would have an aide, a mental health, a therapeutic aide with them at all times. So again, these are valuable, but they're practical and they make sense. You need to have farm staff nearby or other trained staff members. All activities are supervised. Going back to that photo where we had children in the pen, there was no adult there. Okay, no solo animal interactions. We have hard and fast rules. Whenever you're in the barn, whenever you're at this farm, whenever you're near any animals, there's no yelling, running, hitting, chasing, etc. All proper techniques are demonstrated, and that goes for bottle feeding a calf or bucket feeding a calf, grooming, any of the farm chores, walking on halter, or exercising. And staff knows the signs of stress, and we do review with the therapists and the occupational therapists, as well as our kiddos, some of the signs of stress in an animal, what to do if you feel stressed. If you look at the animal, take a step back, tell an adult. For our children and adults, we have some common sense rules whenever we're working with animals. No open-toe shoes or sandals. We still get that. Heavy shoes or boots are recommended. We do not allow long jewelry, long earrings, long necklaces, things of that sort. We tell everybody chickens are attracted to shiny thing, and that includes nail polish. We do use rubber gloves and hand sanitizer on occasion. So just this is a 101 review for you all. You're all professionals here. But just as a reminder, why we choose the animals and the way that we do what we do is because excited cows will run, jump, and kick. Okay, cows are big, 75 plus pounds at birth. They're strong, especially when they're hungry. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to bottle feed a calf, but they can pull. And if you're not standing and you're not braced, you can absolutely be pulled over. That's an adult. So think of a child, the danger for the children. Children explore their world through pecking, and that includes your feet and your hands. Roosters, we know, roosters can be protective. Pigs are very powerful, and they have an equally powerful bite, and there's no such thing as a mini pig. We get calls at least twice, 3 times a year. Will you take this pig? I got this pig as a gift, and it was a mini pig, and now it's growing. Of course it's growing. It's a pig. It's going to grow, and it's going to get big. So farm animals, they're not doing anything other than being farm animals. And often, if they react, they're going to react out of fear or anxiety. We just have the hard and fast rule, no animal is bomb-proof. So if we don't want to necessarily work hands-on with the animals, in a care farming situation, in an educational or a therapeutic situation, is observing farm animals an option? And it absolutely is, because you can base therapy sessions around resilience and adaptability, the social hierarchy, the interaction with the other members of the herd in this instance, instinct and intuition. We do talk about the circle of life. Now, we're fortunate because we have a lot of land on our farm. Our dairy cows never leave the farm. We keep milking them until their production starts to drop, and then they are retired and they go to the far end of our farm, and they literally live out the rest of their days on pasture and just really being what cows are supposed to do. And they're just chewing grass and they're hanging out and they're being cows. We have had cows live on our farm up to 23 years old. When the cows die, we do compost our cows on the property. And in some instances, a few years later, we will use the bones, we will use the skulls as part of the education process. So it really is a circle of life. We talk about the responsibility of not only farming, but the responsibility of doing farming well, of farm animal welfare, of environmental protection, and of course, caring for the animals. This was from a few years back, and I was very lucky to be part of this session. And this was a setting for an adult group therapy session that we had. So we do wagon tractor rides, and it's really cool just to go on top of the pasture and we sit. And in this case, we had our therapists, plural, with us because we had a group of adults. And when we stopped the tractor, the herd just followed us. They came over and they spent the entire time just grazing. And we're sitting on this tractor and we're just talking about stuff and we're going through our exercises in our session. And you could just hear the munching, that you could hear them eating the grass. And it was incredible just to watch everyone's, the breath went down, the body language. And again, they didn't need to do anything. They didn't need to groom. They didn't need to feed. They didn't have to do any of the hands-on. It was just being immersed in nature and being immersed with these beautiful animals in nature. Some of our children just simply want to be with the animals, but they're really not into grooming. And before we go on our wagon tractor rides and have therapy sessions, we do allow the children with select animals that are really chill and docile to sit down and be read to. So the kids twice a week can take 45 minutes to an hour. They can go to our kids' library, pick out a book, and then just sit and talk to the animals. And again, we find that effective. It's their one-on-one time. Adults are nearby. The child is not alone. But that is also an effective way for a child just to relax and start to bring down those barriers. So to wrap it up, HAI care farming can be an effective positive method, okay? It can improve human physical, social, emotional, cognitive function. This practice should include cooperation with the farm animals. We never force, respect for the farm animals, and we instill that on our children. Acknowledging and accepting the sentience of the farm animals as well as the natural behavior of the farm animals. And understanding that animals are not machines, they're not tools, they're not things. Understanding that farm animal welfare is not one-sided. And if you ever want to connect with me, if you ever want to do a Zoom call and do a virtual tour of our farm, we can do that. If you're ever in Pennsylvania, I'd love to have you and show you around and show you our programs. Or if you just want to bounce some questions off of me, you can get me at Suzanne@hillsidefarms.org. I thank you so, so much for listening to my presentation.
Oh, thank you very much, Suzanne. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Oh my God, it was such an amazing session. Thank you so, so much. There are a couple of questions in the chat box and in the Q&A section. Because of our time, I won't be able to read all of it out, but I'm sure you'll be more than happy. Yes, sure. So Susan will be in the chat box, so please drop your questions in the chat. She will be in the chat to respond to all your questions. I'm going to be taking just one question from the pre-conference questions. And this is from Onyekachuku Solomon from Nigeria. And, excuse me, is curious to how chickens contribute to therapy. So if we could just go over that very quickly.
Absolutely, yes. And they actually do contribute to the therapy sessions. We observe the chickens. We obviously do not groom the chickens, but we clean out the chicken coops, the various chicken coops. We teach animal welfare. The children are doing physical activities. We pick eggs. Okay, and then we talk about the various types of birds. So in that instance, it's really not hands-on touching the animals, but it is caring for the animals and understanding their role within our food production system. If there's one thing I could quickly add, no matter what animal it is, and there's no magic pill, but what care farming does is it lowers the barriers to communication. So by the time the therapists start to work and talk with these children, they're more open to talking. They're relaxed. They're in fresh air. They're working with the animals. They have physical activities. They feel a sense of responsibility and accomplishment for working with the animals, and they could see the results of their work.
Okay, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thank you. And I
So,
will go through the chat.
yes, and the Q&A section. There are some questions in the Q&A section. All right. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Suzanne. Thank you so much. All right, very quickly to the next speaker. We will be taking us on the topic more than mending fences, how farm animals build bridges for at-risk youth and families. Our speaker is a professor of psychology and coordinator of the pet therapy program at Plymouth State University in New Hampshire, USA. She has extensive experience in education, research, and animal-human interaction. Our research interests include human-animal interaction, research methodology, and student well-being. She has conducted research on a variety of topics, including the impacts of animals on human development, students' perceptions of campus climate, and the inclusion of animals in early childhood and higher education classrooms. She has authored and co-authored a number of book chapters, articles, and reports. And she has also presented her research findings at the national and international conferences, including the American Psychological Association and the International Anthrozoology Conference. Please join me to welcome Professor Clarissa Palmer.
Thank you very much, Praise. I appreciate that and appreciate being here with all of you. So I hope that you can hear me just fine and that you are able to see my screen just fine.
Yes, we can hear and we can see your screen. Yes.
Wonderful. So thank you all for having me here. This picture is me with our two boys. Walter is the all dark and Hobbs is a little bit lighter with a little bit of caramel color there. So as Praise mentioned, I am faculty in the psychology program at Plymouth State University, where I've been for about 18 years. My focus is developmental psychology, especially working with young children and family systems. So working with at-risk youth and their families became a real natural fit for me as I was getting involved in the community up here. Prior life experiences involve being an education coordinator and specialist at a zoo in Massachusetts, in the United States. And so I worked with a lot of different species of animals in developing curriculum and developing, programs for children and adults of all ages. So my background with animals goes way back, and we had the opportunity to work with these two steer. They are adult male steer, 6 and 6.5 years old. And so I've known them since they were about 2 months old and have a great relationship with them. And we recently moved them from a neighboring property up to our own so that we have them near us 24/7. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the work that they have done with at-risk youth and their families. And I wanted to give you a little bit more of a background as to what we do and how we do it, and some of the experiences and stories that we've had. The previous speakers today have done an amazing job in setting a foundation for me to talk about some case studies. So this presentation won't be hardcore research, but it will be hardcore hands-on experience that I've been able to see and be a part of. I'm going to try to advance this slide. Here we go. There we are. So at-risk youth, the at-risk youth that we work with have traditionally been what's considered adolescents. So roughly around the teenage ages, so 13 to 18 years of age, have been recruited into our program that is a community-based program for restorative justice when youth have committed some crime or are at risk of committing crime or being put into the wrong population or friend group that could be considered dangerous, at risk, or threatening to the community. And so a lot of times what we end up seeing are young children, and they have been brought in to the program on referrals from either the school or police departments that are in the local community because they have committed a crime or vandalism. They have stolen goods or stolen credit cards. They have committed what's considered a lower level crime or offense. And we are trying to get them adjusted, trying to get them to understand the consequences of their behavior earlier than if they continue to perpetuate these offenses. And so they are often referred to our program where we get to work with them, in some cases with farm animals, in some cases with domestic companion animals, in some cases in other community outreach activities. So working with the farm animals is only one option that we do work with at-risk youth and their families. They have other options. And as Suzanne mentioned in the previous presentation, we do evaluate the children that are referred to us and their families for a goodness of fit with the program. We want to make sure that the families can make a fairly long-term commitment of anywhere between 10 and 15 visits to our farm area. We want to make sure that the children understand the responsibilities of working with other live animals. We also want to make sure that we have investment of all parties before we bring them into what we consider our home and into the farm animals' home. So we do want to evaluate the whole system to make sure that it is a good fit for everybody. So who you're looking at here is Rosie, and she was a miniature donkey that we worked with a few times, and she had a partner. We had Rosie and Daisy that were working with us with the at-risk youth. She has moved on to another farm now. She is 23 years old, and she is living nearby, but in another farm with Daisy, not working with people, just living a retirement type of life. So some of the things that we're looking at when we're looking at-risk youth, these are youth who are acting out either physically or verbally to the people around them, and they are oftentimes difficult to reach in terms of an emotional or cognitive standpoint. They have lots of walls up already because of family situations, because of perceptions of people in authority. And so we're looking at complex challenges with adolescents and even nowadays younger students. The youngest student we've worked with is a 10-year-old. The oldest is a 19-year-old that we've worked with, and we do work on one-on-one with the youth and their families. So being able to shake them out of their normal system or comfort level is something that working with a farm animal will do, and working on a farm will do. Sometimes students are used to being in a city environment, being in their hometown environment, and so bringing them to a farm where they're unfamiliar can shake up their emotions a bit. It shakes up their thinking a little bit so that the therapeutic professional can get in and reach and start to help that youth and their family communicate better, work together better, hear things in a different way, maybe hear criticisms or areas of improvement in different ways. Sometimes youth have not been around larger animals. Most of the companion animals that we do see in this area of the United States are dogs, cats, rabbits, smaller household pets, if you will. And so having a 250-pound donkey or a 100-pound goat or a 2,000-pound cow or steer next to you, looking at you, breathing on you, can really allow interventions and services to take root with the at-risk youth and their family. And those things don't often happen in a traditional setting like an office. A lot of times families are communicating after school, before school, they're in a hurry, there's a lot of pressure to be able to say what you need to say. May not be a lot of care given in how information is transferred. May not be able to take that time to really articulate what the goals are of the communication or what the needs are. Being on a farm and having larger animals, having different smells, the sensory experiences can be very different than a typical day at home. And so having that almost sense of calmness on the farm allows people to take a step back, a slower breath, to be able to experience their surroundings in a slightly different way, without pressure, without the rush to get food on the table. Well, although the donkeys and the cows love to eat very quickly, so we have to make sure that we take the time to teach everyone how to be around the animals safely. We want to make sure that the families take that time to just be at the farm and to take in all of those sensory experiences before we go into any pastures or barn space where the animals might also be roaming. So hopefully when families can experience that calm, that slowness, they're able to bring that home with them, or the children are able to take that back to school with them, where they can learn how to regulate their own body's reactions to words, to feelings, to the sense that they get around them. Some of the real challenges that we face, and I'm sorry if you're hearing someone in the background, that is our dog who is snoring away on his bed. So sometimes when we bring a youth and their family to the farm, it can be a little difficult for them for transportation. We are about 30 minutes away, 30-minute drive away from the main town where we live. There's no public transportation. So we are trying to be able to get people here, but we want to understand their needs as well. And we want to make sure that we're able to try to remediate any of the challenges that they might feel when they're becoming part of this program. There are some times living in a small community where the at-risk youth and their family may know the therapist, the mental health worker, the restorative justice coordinator, or even myself, and they may feel uncomfortable working with people that they know. And so trying to be able to mediate that has been a challenge too. And sometimes working with adolescents, especially adolescents who are 13 to 15 years old, developmentally, we know that children within that range think they know everything. They've seen it all. They have all the experience in the world. And so trying to break down that initial barrier or get past that initial barrier of staunchness, of I'm okay. I know what a donkey is. I know what a cow is. I know how to work around them. We sometimes have to try to flip that in a way that we can use their experience or their perceived knowledge of an animal's behavior or expectations as we watch and observe the individual animals that we are working with. And so I don't usually discount what the adolescent is saying. Yes, I've been around cows before, and that's great. I'm glad that they've had that experience, but they haven't been around our cows. And so we really try to teach students, youth, and their families that while they may have been around cows, they may have been around other children before, that particular steer, that particular child is an individual. And we all have individual needs, desires, wants, wishes, ways to communicate that are slightly different from our overall species universal language. And so being able to work from a framework that, yes, cows and steer have these typical behaviors or expectations, but what do Walter and Hobbes have? So really challenging people to look at the individualness of the animals that we're working with can be a challenge, but again, going back to a strength-based perspective with the individual at-risk youth is important, because we don't want to throw away or not recognize the strengths that they're bringing to any program. So as you've heard already with the presentations from the last 2 days, relationships with non-human animals are critical to making us human. Non-human animals oftentimes have a non-judgmental presence. They don't know, they can't pick up necessarily what happened 10 minutes before you walk into the barn. They don't care if you're in a bad mood. They still need attention, they need care, they need food. What I tell our at-risk youth, and especially the families that come to the programs with them, is that yes, our animals don't care about why you're here. They don't care if you stole makeup from the local store. They don't care if you vandalized your teacher's car. They do care how you treat them. And if you are treating them with respect, with care, with understanding, they will give that back to you. And a lot of times with our at-risk youth, restorative justice youth, they don't hear that. They hear the one-sided, I'm not being treated well. My parents don't understand. No one listens to me. So here they're learning about a bi-directional relationship. If they can open up and give their listening to someone else might give their listening back to them. So that's one of the goals that we hope to have with this program. Another thing we heard a lot about in previous presentations for this conference was about safety and trust. These animals are choosing to work with at-risk youth and their families. They're choosing to let me work with them. This is Sarah, who is a 13-year-old goat who is on a lead. This was not during a program. This is her and I going for a walk in the area because she liked to get away from the other goats every once in a while. And so the lead is there just for us to go for a walk to make sure that we were keeping her safety in mind in case any cars or tractors came down into the barn area. Wanted to be able to call her over because she likes to eat a lot of grass and tree leaves. So the lead was there for her safety. But we also want to teach the youth and families about this open communication about what they need for safety and trust. Everything that we do at the farm with the steer, the goats, and the donkeys, we talk through with the children and their families about why it's being done or how it's being done. If it's done all the time, what are the circumstances when we use a lead like this, or we use a sweater like you're seeing on Sarah? And what are the consequences if we don't do that? And so really hoping that the families and the children get a sense of talking through what they're experiencing, but more importantly, how they are experiencing what they're going through. You've seen already on the oxytocin, on the cortisol, the big part of working with farm animals, as I said in the previous slide, is the sensory difference. A lot of times you will go through a store and you will smell the bakery or you'll smell flowers, and those scents have different memory triggers for us. The scents, the smells, the sounds, the textures with farm animals in a barn are very different than working with a dog or a cat, or having companion animal dogs and cats at home. So at a barn, we're looking at the smell of hay, the smell of poop and urination, of course. We're looking at different textures with the woods, with the fur on the different animals that may be included in this practice. We're looking at water, not just from a glass, but in a 100-gallon bucket. We're looking at listening to the sounds of the chewing of the hay, of the grain. We're looking at the interactions of the animals as well. A lot of times what we'll do with the animals at the farm is we will ask students to brush the animals, and they'll get the shed from them. And with the goats, you can feel a little bit of the lanolin to that. And so the sensory components are so critical. And for me, when I first started doing this work with barn animals, it was really a surprise to me. It was something that I took for granted because I've been at the farm, because I've loaded hay, I've brushed and trimmed hooves. I've done all this work with them. So I had to really take a good step back when I started working with other people with these animals, because I was taking it all for granted. And that definitely caused me to have more of a focus on the safety issues, on the trust issues, but also the benefit to the farm animals. Did they want to engage? How were they engaging? When did they engage? And how did I know that they wanted to engage? And so being able to spend that amount of time with them was really critical in being able to set up a program where we were benefiting all parties involved. A lot of times people, again, will sit at a farm, and we'll do this before we institute our program. We have people sit on bales of hay. And like Suzanne mentioned, we do have certain clothing protocol with boots or closed-toed shoes, long pants, long sleeves, because there might be allergies to the hay or to the fur. There are definitely bugs in a barn situation, flies, mosquitoes. So we want to be mindful of that. And we also do have a shallow bucket where we ask people to step in and out of a disinfecting liquid before they go in and out of the barn to help remediate some of the potential disease spreading. And again, we just have the 2 boys right now, so we feel very fortunate about that. But I didn't want that to go unheard, that we do have a lot of safety protocols and procedures in place. And so when people come into the barn, they are asked to sit on a bale of hay or a couple of chairs that we have around if they're not comfortable doing the hay bale. And we talk about the barn and how the barn came into existence and why the animals are here and what we're going to do for the day. And so there's usually a 20 to 25-minute introduction period that we bring to the family, to the youth, to any assisted services personnel that might be with the family. And that can be occupational therapists, that can be physical therapists, that can be an actual school counselor. We've had police officers come with the families, and we've had restorative justice coordinators, just to name a few, who have attended with families and their children. But we want to make sure everybody hears the same information and everybody understands their responsibilities. They understand the responsibility of the animals at the farm as well. And as Suzanne mentioned, the responsibilities for the animals are very low. The animals do what they do, and we observe and we take note and we go from there. And we let the animals lead all of the sessions and interactions that we have with people. So a lot of words on this slide, but I know people have been concerned about how farm animals are working with farm animals might be different than working with companion animals. And I coordinate our on-campus pet-assisted therapy program. It's called the Wellness Animal Group. And right now we have 8 therapy dog teams that come on campus at scheduled times with their handlers, their guardians, and they work with our college age population and faculty and staff on a pretty scheduled basis in various residential facilities, but also academic buildings. And people have much more experience with the traditional pets, dog, cat, rabbits, fish, birds. So working with farm animals takes it to a different level. One, the physical environment is different. Working from a home living room type situation or an office for therapeutic settings is more common and comfortable, relaxing and settling. Working on a farm or at a barn with farm animals, it's a little bit different for people. And we're also thinking about how the actual environment itself smells, looks, feels. How welcoming is it? And who is it more welcoming for? Is the farm or the barn more welcoming for the human visitors or for the animal residents? And when children see that it's not a comfortable place, there's no couch, there's no recliner, they feel a little bit unsettled, and that bit of unsettledness allows us to capitalize on their ability to hear things differently. We also ask them to wear work gloves, and so that's something that they might not be doing at home. And so the sensory experience includes all the senses. And we want to make sure that we're able to reach children and their families where they are and who they are. And so I might hear a song, or I might hear the gurgling of a cow stomach, and that may not speak to me. But looking into the cow's eye may speak to me. And so this is very much like an emergent curriculum, and the multiple ways of learning. If we can find the way to reach that child and their family that works for that child and their family, we have a much better chance of helping that child and family become successful in their communication, successful in expressing their needs and knowing what they're feeling and how to express that. And so capitalizing on all those sensory experiences at a farm is wonderful. The physical work, we had one young lady who came to our farm as part of a restorative justice program, and she was not that comfortable working with the larger animals, but she wanted to be at the farm. And when I asked her why, she said it was the furthest place away from home on her options list. And that was fine. I want that honesty. I want to know why people are coming to the farm, why people are choosing to spend time with the animals or with me or at the barn. So I asked her what she'd like to do. What's her hope? What's her goal? And she just wanted to be around the animals. She didn't need to touch them. She didn't need to brush them. She didn't need to clean up after them, but she just wanted to be in a barn situation. So we happened to work out a situation with a local farmer who hazed their field, and we ended up getting 150 bales of hay And every time she came to the barn, her job was to get the hay off the trailer, up the hay elevator into the loft, and stack the hay. And then she would have to figure out how much hay we needed for the week between her visits. And she would stack that and get it all prepared for us to use for the next week. And then she had that level of responsibility of having to come back the next week to do it all again because we needed the hay down from the loft. And her responsibility was hay management. And she was really good at that. And of course, these are opportunities that we're trying to build with the youth and their families, but we also know that these experiences are going to end. And we don't have the youth and their families for ever. We have them for 10 weeks, for 15 weeks, a couple hours a week. And so trying to build in a plan that helps us help the families is really crucial because we want to make sure that we have those outcomes met so that the family sees a check of success at the end of the program. And sometimes that happens where the families can't complete the program. And if I'm aware of that, I can help them finish the program early so that we're both seeing the outcome of success, whatever that might be. So we had some pre-conference questions, and this one I really wanted to put in here. The goats, the horses, the cows, the donkeys are fairly social animals, and they like to be a part of what's going on. At least that's been my experience. Again, I've worked with 7 individual farm animals. And so the 7 that I work with pick and choose when they want to be involved with the therapeutic interventions. And so for these animals, the size is important. Size is going to make the youth or help the youth feel a little bit more uncomfortable. Maybe they're not as brave as they thought they were. And that puts them a little bit uneven and allows them to see that growth in who they are as they continue to work through the program. So another picture of Walter and Hobbs. These 2 boys, as I said earlier, they were brought into our neighborhood, our community, when they were about 2 months old. The woman who brought them in, this is her barn in this picture where they lived previously, just down the street. She had rescued them from another farm because she thought that they would be used as logging animals, logging oxen. The goal was to train them to help bring timber out of the local woods in order to help build and develop live edge wood cabinets, furniture, designs, decorations. And then I came along, being a neighbor, and I said, "Oh, they're so adorable. They'd make great companion animals." And so the boys have never been farming oxen. They have been companion animals their entire life. They have been with humans since they were about 2 months old, and donkeys and goats as well. But they've been brushed, they've been handled, they've been around people in their personal space since they were very, very young. My work with the pet therapy animal program on campus involves me also being a registered evaluator and trainer for Pet Partners International, which do not certify or register cattle, but I'm able to really look at their individual temperament and see how social they are, how tolerable they are, how willing they are to be around other people. So I've used a lot of my own personal experiences and background to be able to work with livestock and the boys. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, we're really looking at the temperament of the boys on any particular day, hour, or minute. Are they feeling especially frisky and rambunctious and want to play and roughhouse with each other? That's going to change how we interact with them and how we bring people to them. Or are they pretty calm and relaxed at a particular time? These guys are probably now about 1,500 pounds each, and that takes a lot of nerve to go up to a 1,500-pound non-human animal and to be able to engage with them. And so building that up into an adolescent really builds up a lot of interpersonal strength. We do that, of course, very cautiously. We want to make sure that both the children and their families, or the adults that they bring with them, understand what we're doing and how we're doing it and what our goals are. We're not going to go rushing right in to their space, to the Walter and Hobbes space, and say, hey, we're here, love us, we're here to love you. We want to be very cautious and observant with how Walter and Hobbes are interacting with us. And a lot of times we start off on the other side of the fence that you can see in the back there. We want Walter and Hobbes to know that we're there. We want them to be able to choose to come see us, smell us, know what we're going on, and get a sense for who we are. And that interaction, that caution, that slow to warm up period is something that we want to teach at-risk youth to be able to better evaluate a situation that they might be asked to participate in, whether it's a harmful or potentially harmful situation or a potentially positive situation. Taking that time, that patience to be able to evaluate what's happening is super important. All of our animals always choose whether they want to participate or not. They are able to walk away. They are not in a small enclosed area. Right now, we work on 2 acres of land with Walter and Hobbes, and we do not go into their personal barn space with them for our work. Our work is handled outside. And this is just my own personal belief. I like my space, and I want animals to feel that they're comfortable going where they want to go. And we also have areas in that 2 acres that we don't work with them in, because those are areas that they have shown me that they like for comfort, for rest. And so I don't want to threaten their areas. I want them to know that they have some safe zones to go through. So these are pictures of me when I was about 2.5 years old with my mom and with my dad. And they have obviously raised me to be respectful and to appreciate animals of all sorts. And I want to try to do that with the families that we bring into our program as well. When we're working with children, really giving them the experience of a variety of opportunities to succeed, to learn, to be who they really are, it is incredibly important. A lot of times what we'll do with the cows is just sit with them. We won't engage with them. We won't go up and pet with them, but we will watch and observe them as well. And that allows youth and their families, hopefully, to gain that sense of patience and to be able to see the strengths that each other are bringing to that relationship. Make sure. This is a case study. I'm going to put this all up first. This particular 15-year-old girl was referred to us for stealing from a local store. She and her dad came to our program, and she still comes by to say hi to the cows now, even though it's been 1.5 years since she's worked with them. Dad was not so fond of being around the critters, and so we were asking about moving the bales of hay, and that was all good. The young lady wanted to go out and brush the boys, again, 1,500 pounds. And she was so excited. Dad was in the barn and she's brushing one of the cows, and I'm with her and the cows. Dad's in the barn. And she's like, "Hey, Dad, you have to see this." And Hobbs just was not having that. That was not the environment he wanted to be in. He did not spook. He slowly turned away and walked over towards the other section of the barn area. There's a covered area. He just did not want to be around that type of engagement and personality. And so she saw him literally leave from her space. And that was very challenging for her to come to grips with. She looked at me and said, "Why did he leave?" I did not tell her why he left. I asked her why he left. What might have caused him to leave? Trying to get her to think about cause and response, and hopefully having her dad see her work through that, and she could work that through. And she was a capable person in thinking about her actions and the reactions that they might elicit. This is a friend of mine who is laying out there with Walter. And she, as an adult, has been around animals a lot, with farm animals, in her younger years, and has spent time with Walter. This was not a first visit with Walter at all. This was built up over several visits, over several years, being able to sit down with him. And he could choose to get up and leave, and she was fully aware of how cows get up, because that's very different, and what to look for in terms of precursors for how to tell when, especially Walter, would be getting up. And so this was under good caution. But that communication skills that we want to instill with our children and with families is communication doesn't always happen verbally. Communication happens with body language, and we have to observe and learn and interpret body language from non-human animals, from ourselves, and from those around us. And so working with farm animals is a good way to get some of those skills, those observation and interpretation skills, built in. So this is What's Up, was a little goat that we saw while we were volunteering at an animal sanctuary while we were on vacation. He was a little guy who was following everybody around. And it was a farm sanctuary. And so we oftentimes like to volunteer when we go on vacation so that we can continue learning about what other programs are doing, what other setups are available, and how other facilities, other people are collaborating with animals to help other people. And so what we hoped to do, and what I wanted to present to you today, was how we work hands-on with farm animals to help youth and their families hopefully build up those relationships that are so important for a stable family unit, and be able to share some of our experiences with you in a way that respects the youth, the families, and the animals that we partner with. You had some other pre-conference questions. By the way, this is my mom, who, as you saw in 1972, took me to be around cows. And now when she was 62, I brought her around cows. We also have some bees. We have 2 beehives, and those have been very helpful in letting people sit next to and just hear the humming. So that has been really interesting, and I consider bees livestock. And so we do work with them too, definitely a hands-off perspective. So thank you very much for listening. I want to make sure that we kind of stay on time. So happy to take questions, or you can definitely email me and reach out, and I can stay and chat for a while as well.
Thank you, Dr. Clarissa. Thank you so very much. Amazing presentation. So reading from the chat, fantastic talk, great presentation. Thanks a lot. Wonderful talk, awesome presentations. Okay, so we have a question from Dr. Barbara. She said, I was wondering what happens with your farm animals when they become older. I also was wondering if the animals are used for any specific purposes, such as milk or fur.
It's a great question, and our boys right now are 6 and 6.5. They will stay with us on our property until their last day. They are not raised for meat. They are companion animals. Jokingly, people will say lawn ornaments, because we don't work with them outside of working with people. They don't have another purpose. They don't pull logs. They're not milking cows. So no other purpose for them, and they will stay with us. And if they get to a point where they are no longer interested in working with people, then we don't work with them with people. And that's true on a day-to-day basis too. So if they're not having it, we're not going to ask them to work with the animals. And people need to understand that when they come to the farm, and it's part of our conversation where you might not always be able to have that conversation with someone at a given moment because they're not ready to hear it or they're not in a place to hear it. And that's the same thing with farm animals.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clarissa. Thank you so much. Amazing, awesome presentation. So I think I've gone through the chat. I think that's the only question we have. Okay, so we have another question from James Ayodeji. This will be the last one we'll be taking because of our time. The question is, just like Walter and Orbs, I was wondering, are there breed specifications when it comes to cows that can be used for these processes of therapy? That's question one. And then question two is, are there some requirements you look out from their parent to be able to select and say this cow will do the job well? So yes.
Yes, and thank you. I'm just reading that as well. For me, I don't look at particular breed. I have an interesting philosophy in that the animals show up to me. I have not had to go out and purchase or rescue animals for this work. This is work that they show me they want to be a part of. I mentioned earlier, we have a dog who is not a pet therapy dog. He does not want to deal with people. And so it's not so much about the breed, it's about the individual temperament and the sociability and the willingness to partner with me with this work. And I feel that way with dogs, with cats, with cattle. A lot of times too, I think something I might not have heard about too much in this conference is your own personal resources. We have the 2-steer because that's what we have the physical space for, and that's what we have the time resources for. We do not have 7 animals on our property because that's too much space. That's too much time, and that's too much financial responsibility than we can give. And so being responsible to know what our availability is in terms of space, time, and finances is super important to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the animals that we do have and that we are guardians for.
Yes, amazing. I personally agree with that. I had a dog who was very, very, very lazy, just liked to be on the couch all day, did not like to do anything. So I know that incorporating my dog, his name was Milo, incorporating him into the pet human animal therapy would just turn out a disaster. So I very much agree on the temperament of the animal involved. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Thank you for that praise.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Clarissa. Thank you to everyone. And okay, so Dr. Clarissa will be in the chat if there are any more questions or if you'd like to reach out to her. Our email would also be in the chat, and the slides and all will be sent to everyone via a Google Drive after the conference. So thank you so much once again, Dr. Clarissa. All right, so very quickly, we'll be moving on to our last speaker for today and for this conference. She'll be talking to us on positive animal welfare in human-animal interactions, the case of the IHIO guidelines. For the next 10 to 12 minutes, very quickly, join me to welcome Professor Alina Rusu. It's good to have you back.
Hi, praise again. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. Yes,
Yeah?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. I'll be fast because all these the guidelines are available on the IHIO website, and I already introduced
Okay.
the association. So I just want to present to the audience a short summary what they can find there. And so this is about positive animal welfare that we already addressed the concept. We discussed about it, and nearly all the speakers, all the speakers have contributed with the information on building up the definition of positive animal welfare. And here I will be talking shortly about the IHIO guidelines. One second. Okay. Yeah. First, I already said about IHIO. I'm also a board member, and there are other board members here present, like Michael Kaufman. I've seen that he's here, and Francesc Cristol, and probably there are also others. I cannot see now the audience, but I'm saying hello to all of you. And also we have regional representatives. The association was founded in 1992, and it is one of the leading global association of organizations in the field of human-animal interaction, focusing, of course, on animal-assisted services. And now the mission and the values are nicely listed, put on the website. It's just, I try to make here a summary of them. So the major aim is to promote respectful and responsible human-animal treatments, and in the inclusion of animals in intervention and interaction with animals. So I will, 1 second. Yeah, here are just some, I made a screenshot of the representatives. You see there, Sunday is also in this picture. And I used to be also, and thank you very much, Dr. Sandra Agbonika, for all the work that you are doing and of providing so many insightful connections, not only among the experts in the field of animal-assisted services, but also showcasing the knowledge and the research and the practice to the veterinarians in Africa. And I used to be a regional representative myself for the Central and Eastern Europe, but then when I became a board member, my dear colleague Magda from Poland, she took over the role of regional representative for that part of Europe. And of course, we are collaborating for many, many years. And now this year, in the last months, together with my colleagues from IHIO, we established closer connections with the regional representatives. We tried to hear their voices, and we'll have a lot of more work to do together in the incoming conference in Amsterdam in 2 weeks from now. But also, of course, we are having a lot of online meetings and discussions. Now, about the need for guidelines and standards, we don't have to talk because all of the speakers have mentioned various guidelines coming from either their own, their own experiences and or being part of veterinary associations or other valuable networking. And we have noticed that all of them brought in the perspective of one health and one welfare, which is also the case of IHIO. So Ohio promotes the one health and one welfare approach that should be employed from the initial planning and throughout the implementation of all the activities, programs in the categories of animal-assisted services for the protection, assuring the safety and prevention of the risk for both human and animal participants or collaborators. As my previous speaker nicely put it, animals do collaborate with us, and of course, without letting them express their agency and the freedom of choice, which can be done only within a safe environment, then we cannot talk about animal-assisted services. And because we are talking about the inclusion of farm animal in animal-assisted therapy, I mean, in the general category of animal-assisted services, here I just want to point to you that there is, I mean, other publications on the various resources. Here we have a particular publication that is available for free, alongside with white papers that are being updated continuously. So here we have the Ohio International Guidelines on Care, Training, and Welfare Requirements, because I've seen that a lot of you have asked what are the requirements for the inclusion of cows, of goats. And a lot of answers were already given by my colleagues, the previous speakers. I tried to follow all the discussion threads in the chat, but I've seen that they're still going on, and it's a lot of valuable information there. So we have these guidelines on care, training, and welfare requirements for farm animals involved in animal-assisted interventions. Now we are using animal-assisted services, but still in interventions, the concept can be found and it can be used in an interchangeable manner with services. So here we have guidelines for 9 different farm animal species: donkeys, sheep, goats, cattle, cows, and heifers, New World camelids, camels, pigs, chickens, and rabbits. I will place in the chat the link, but if you already go to the Ohio website, you will see there on the right corner the resources, the guidelines, the category guidelines. If you go, you will find a lot of resources, and among them is this one that I'm talking about. So we are talking here about an international task force formed by experts, researchers, educators, practitioners in the field, and they worked between 2018 and 2021 for the elaboration of these guidelines. That means that there were a lot of meetings, a lot of work done on the document, and a lot of comments from the other members. I'm going to rush through it. I just made them, here I just took some parts from the document. I won't read it. You will see that if you open the document, you will have general guidelines applying to all farm animal species. And then it goes nicely on the categories that I just mentioned. Also, if you follow the web page and check it, or the social media page of the Ohio, you will see that we are having a lot of offers that you can, such as free webinars. There is one in September, so in 1.5 months from now. But you can also, if you become an individual member, you will see, or organizational, maybe some of you are already there, you have access to the recording of these resources. And what is important here is that if we check the document, you will see that the word veterinarian is mentioned many, many, many times. So no pressure, people. Okay, as some of my colleagues already said, the health of the animals cannot be accomplished without the well-being. And I said, well, positive well-being in this case, of positive animal welfare. So here, of course, when we are working with animals, it's mandatory to have the in animal-assisted services to have the involvement, the collaboration with veterinarians. 4, regular basic health check, specific health check in areas in which we know there are some issues such as rabies zone, And then a veterinarian, it is recommended to have a look to check the health and by using the particular tools that they have, and including checklist and other instruments to investigate, to monitor the health of the animals that are involved in animal-assisted services. And they can decide, but also the person that are working directly with the animals, they can see and they should be knowledgeable about the behavior and the sign of distress of the animals. And we know those who were involved or are currently involved in such work that we should be always mindful, vigilant, when we are working with animals, even when we are observing from a distance. I've seen some pictures, nice pictures of our colleagues showing that animal-assisted services, they can have activities such as just observing the animals, listening to the breathing of the cows, or to the sounds that are made in nature by the animals and so on. So, of course, the 5 domains was mentioned many times, and the needs of freedom, the freedoms. So the biological, physical, and psychological needs, including the social needs of the animals, have to be met in order to be able to talk about animal-assisted services. But these are general, they are much longer, much condensed. I put there some dots where I just extracted some information, and this is just the general guidelines. And then you will see that if you go deeper, you will find for each indication for each of the species. Here, all the pictures are from the Ayahayo social media. It's a public page, so we have the permission to use them. And I also took some flyers of the webinars that they were already done, just to give you a flavor of the beautiful and insightful topics that are presented and disseminated by the Ayahayo community. Then accommodation of farm animals was discussed today, should be adapted to their species-specific needs, including social needs, keeping in mind that some breeds can tackle better the solitary life than others. And of course, an animal welfare and safety protocol should be in place to each farm animal species involved. And for this, we are indicating you where you can find some guidelines in case you don't have already these resources in your hands. And I want to show you, thanks for your attention, but I want to show you, but it's not visible. I will send it. It's a book entitled What We Need, What We Like, What We Can Do, which is mentioned it's mentioned a lot in this document. And I will put in the link or send to Dr. Sunday the information from when you can purchase this by writing directly to the author, which is Ingrid Stefan from Germany. And like Michael and some other colleagues from here, that she was involved in the farm animal assisted services for many years, like 3 decades or so. Thank you very much, and greetings from my cat too, who was here listening to all of you and appreciating the fantastic atmosphere of this conference. Thank you, and congratulations to all the organizers.
Thank you, Dr. Alina. Thank you so much. And hello to your cat too.
She says hello too. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow, guys. It's been an amazing conference. And shortly before I call on Dr. Sunday for the closing remarks, I'd like to remind everyone to please confirm that their names match the names that was used to register for the conference, so that we have easy dissemination for the certificates. So your username for the Zoom should be the name that you would like on the certificate. So I will quickly read through Dr. Sunday's bio, just because. So, with over a decade of experience spanning veterinary medicine, public health, education, and advocacy, Dr. Agbonika is building bridges between science, society, and compassion, especially in the African context. He holds a master's degree in animal welfare and behavior from the University of Pennsylvania and is a certified human animal intervention specialist from Oakland University, USA. As the founder of Dogalov Human Support Initiative, he is pioneering Africa's first HI movement, delivering therapy sessions to children with special needs and championing animal assistance services and One Health solutions across communities. A Mandela Washington Fellow and TEDx speaker, Dr. Agbonika has contributed to international publications, including the book Dogs in Schools and peer-reviewed articles in journals such as Animals. His work has been featured by global media, including Bedtimes UK and Science News Explores USA, amongst others. Please join me to give a warm welcome to the founder of Dogalov Human Support Initiative and the host of the 5th Human-Animal Interactions Conference, Dr. Sunday Agbonika. Yay!
Okay, thank you so much for that praise. I didn't see that coming. So thank you to you, Praise, for the excellent moderation. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to every participant, everyone who's here. Thank you especially to all our volunteers on the call. I also want to particularly say a very big thank you to our volunteer advisor, who's also here, Dr. Nancy Dreschel, and another special appreciation to Dr. Praise Akobo, who just helps to run the entire team as well. I mean, like, it's such a blessing to be surrounded by people who are exceptional as well, who are giving their all to see the growth of everything that we're doing. So thank you to everyone. This brings us to the end of the structured parts of this meeting, and I will be stopping the recording at this point. So thank you, everyone. Looking forward to having you join us for the next year's edition of the conference. Please hang on, but then this will be the end of the structured part of the event.